Hi folks, here we are on the kitchen garden plot in August, and it's beautiful weather. I'm going to talk a little bit about sowing cabbages. Might not seem the sexiest of subjects, but actually they're really good for you and very easy to grow, and you can grow them virtually all year round. Now this time of year in August we'll be sowing spring cabbages, so we're sowing them now to grow right through the winter. They're very hardy, and we'll be harvesting them from around about end of March, April, that sort of time. Got lots of varieties here, as you can see, just to prove that you can sow them any time. We've got some winter ones like January King, got some summer ones here as well, which you'd sow in the spring. We've got a couple of varieties there. Greyhound is a really good one, which you've got here. But I'm going to sow one called April, called that because you harvest it in April, surprise, surprise. And we'll start, going to sow them in the open ground. You've got two choices. You can either do what I'm doing here, sow them outside in a nursery bed, or you can sow them, as regular viewers to our videos will see many times, in cell trays. One advantage or a couple of advantages with the cell trays, as anybody who's ever grown a cabbage will know, pigeons, slugs and snails absolutely love them. So you can give them an earlier start, and a start sort of free from pests if you sow them in trays and then perhaps keep them in a polytunnel or a cold greenhouse or something to start with. Out here a little bit more exposed, but at this time of year they should grow really quickly, and once we've sown we're going to put some netting over them to keep all the pests off. So to start, prepared the ground. We've given it a rake. It's ground that's had plenty of manure added to it earlier on in the season. Mustn't add it immediately before sowing, but it's been in the winter it was manured. That's well broken down, so the soil's nice and rich, which is exactly what they like. We've given it a bit of a rake to form a nice sort of crumbly seed bed to sow the little seeds in. But the thing with brassicas is they like it to be firm. They like firm ground, otherwise they don't grow particularly well. And particularly if you grow things like sprouts, then they'll tend to blow, anything in the cabbage family. But with sprouts, instead of getting nice tight sprouts like you'd buy in the shops, they'll tend to just become all loose, and they'll be more like a little cabbage stuck to the stems. And that's mainly because the ground wasn't firm enough. So having raked it, you can firm it, and it's literally as basic as putting your foot on the ground and giving it a good firming. Now we're only going to sow a very short row because this is a nursery bed, and we're going to want to just get these plants to a certain size, then we'll be planting them out again later. So short row, unless you eat hundreds of cabbages, you won't want to do very much. Make a drill in the ground, old stick or the edge of your hoe or edge of your rake, about 1/2 inch deep. Very simple. Open the packet. Now thankfully the seeds aren't too small, quite easy to handle, so it's quite easy to sow them thinly, and you do only need them thinly, about 1 inch apart. So relatively big seeds, and just drop them in. Now if you do happen to sow them too thickly, it doesn't matter, don't panic. Seeds are relatively cheap, but also if you grow too many you can eat the thinnings. You can stir fry them, you know, or cook them in the normal way, and in fact they're just as nutritious, if not more nutritious, than the full-grown cabbages themselves. Just while I'm sowing these, to mention that you could also sow a few in pots, and to just grow them into small plants in a pot if all you've got is a balcony or a patio, and rather than growing them into full-size cabbages, just eat them when they get to the size of spring greens. So even if you haven't got much ground like we have here, we've got plenty here, but if you haven't got a lot, you can sow a few in pots and you can still enjoy the flavour of your own homegrown cabbages. So sow them thinly, about 1 inch apart, covering them over, just gently with your hand or with a stick. Use your stick if you prefer. So not too deep, about 1/2 inch deep. Then we'll give them a good water. They do like plenty of moisture, so because you're sowing them in August, if it's going to be really hot and dry, do make sure you keep them watered. We'll label them up, of course, so we know what we've got here. Once they get to about, once they've grown about 5 or 6 leaves, so perhaps they're about 6 inches tall, they're nice stocky plants, you can lift them out with a trowel. Before you do that, I should say, give them a good water, a good soak in the night before. Lift them out with a trowel and then plant them about 12-15 inches apart in the open ground. Make sure you cover them straight away with netting as soon as you've finished growing. The ground that you replant them in, again, should be nice and firm, so firmed down well. 15 inches apart, let them grow on. If you want them because these are a spring variety, you can grow them as spring greens, in which case you can plant them out a lot closer, so you can plant them 4 inches apart, and just you'll be harvesting them much smaller, and what you can do then is just harvest every other one and leave the rest to grow to full-size heads. So that's cabbage.